Alright, welcome to Tea Trail. I'm your host, T Red, and on today's episode of Tea Trail on Nature's TV, we're going to be looking at one of my favourite subjects, composting, which lies somewhere between permaculture and a plant-based diet. It's an amazing thing. So composting is, alright, if we look down here, we have a pile of predominantly grass cuttings, which come from our next door neighbour, which many would consider a waste product. Not to a permaculturist, mate. There are some leaves in there as well. We'll get to the science bit in just a second, and then moving on over here, we have a pile of wood chippings, which come from the estate, and we're lucky we have like a collection of the most beautiful beech trees, and some of them as old as the property, which is about 500 years old. So they're regularly maintained, and tree surgeons are here today, so they're going to be reducing the crowns mainly. I'll do a little bit on tree surgery because I think it's just a beautiful thing. So we've got two piles of what a lot of people would consider a waste material, but when you combine those, magic starts to happen. So in the grass cuttings, they are predominantly nitrogen rich, and if we were to leave those as they were just by themselves, then that would form an anaerobic pile and nothing great would happen. So if we combine those with the wood chippings, which is predominantly carbon based, then both of those interact with each other and they start breaking down aerobically, with the addition of water as well, which is what I've added this morning. And that breaks down then to form a beautiful compost, which we can use to grow our beautiful organic fruit and veg. So composting is it's an amazing thing. What we had here at Cornerstone were the three piles of one of wood chippings, one of grass cuttings, and then three lots, or rather another lot of food waste, which had been placed in the plastic composting bins, which by and of themselves have produced an incredible amount of fauna by way of earthworms or red wrigglers, slightly different to earthworms. So we brought all of those together in one pile last weekend and formed a lasagna of compost. We had a composting party, which just totally excites me. So ideally what you look for if you're going to compost yourselves, and I would highly recommend you do, because it is, well, some people say like they're waste piles of waste, but when you combine them into a pile of compost, you're actually looking at what is our body. So as the plants grow, and from a single seed, and then from the sunlight, all of the nutrients that plant takes on to help form itself, and then ultimately feed us and produce seed and carry on the cycle of life, comes from a compost pile. And as part of the permaculture course, we were informed that it takes an average of 1 cubic meter of compost per year to produce the food that would keep our bodies in tip-top condition. So there are three biggies which go into growing, and we'll have a little walk down to the other composting pile now, that help plants grow, and that's nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium. So as we moved away from small scale growing to large scale growing and monoculture, and just to move away from how nature works, and more of a move into heavy bootedness, into a mechanical way of producing things. Lots of things happened, but one of those was that we started using petrochemicals to produce our nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium, which in and of itself makes the plants look healthy, and it produces a good crop. But those plants are just like scraping the floor with nutrient levels, and they reckon since 1920 the nutrients within our food have decreased by approximately 80%. So with the decrease in nutrients, and some of the flavours have been retained, and the colours of the food, and the yield and how they look by genetic modification. What we look at is actually something which, you know, is appealing. But when we put that inside of our bodies, there's very little magic there, and our bodies really are where it all happens, by kingdom of heaven. So composting is just, well, if you can produce really good soil, then you can produce incredibly nutritious and high yielding plants. And then when we get to eat those, we just become full of light, which is captured. Plants are the only thing which can capture sunlight. So we become light filled, our bodies become nutrient dense, and we kind of start moving back towards our body's full potential, which is vast, right? So we're coming down now into Frog and Toad's garden. This is going to be the permaculture project here at Cornerstone. It's an amazing space. I'm really looking forward to rolling out the plans and producing some beautiful food. We've got a polytunnel, so we're perfectly located to propagate lots of plants for other growing projects around and about greenhouse. And then this is the compost pile, which is still under construction. We've got one bay together, so we'll have 3 bays, which means we can rotate the compost. So as opposed to putting grass cuttings on this one, we'll put the food waste and then balance that out with the wood chippings. And ideally what you'd look for on your compost pile is 75% carbon rich, which we'd refer to as brown waste. So that's wood chippings and leaves and twigs and garden waste, and then 25% nitrogen rich stuff, which would be grass cuttings or food waste. So you look to layer those out, and then the benefits come from not only the fauna which is introduced by way of worms and microbes, but then within the wood chippings there are mushroom fungi, or rather spores. So they send out lots of teeny tiny hair-like structures throughout the compost pile, and they help break down any of the substances in there by way of producing mushrooms or fungi, which then return back to the compost. So we introduce fauna and fungi, and they have a little party together with water. It's really important to keep your compost pile well watered. Life is water, so everything that was mentioned, the flora, the microbes, the worms, the fungi, all needs water to live. So then over a period of time, what was a waste product turns into a beautiful medium for growing plants. And composting allows us to really reduce our waste. All plants come in pre-packaged containers, like their skins, so we can reduce plastic. The amount of miles that waste is transported as well, like the green bins or the brown bins that the council provide for us to put in our garden waste, which then gets transported. And I mean, fair play to the council, they're doing similar stuff now and making soil improver. So there is a massive shift here, and when that starts happening within the council as well and local government, we know we're on the right track. So composting is quite similar to that of our body. We have an incredible amount of fungal friends within our body and within our digestive system. So that helps break down the food that we digest, along with like millions, billions, if not trillions of microbes. So actually within our stomach, it's very much like a fermentation composting process that happens. And when we eat the right foods and we have a healthy gut flora, then we happily digest our foods. And as we're beginning to recognize and appreciate, our gut is just the most important thing. There are more nerve endings within our gut than there are in our brain. Our gut is our emotional powerhouse. So as we start eating more enzyme-rich, fresh, live foods, we get back in touch with our feeling center, and we recognize more the direction of the path we would wish to travel, as opposed to being kept within a state of fear. And then composting piles as well, also the parallel between putting our waste stuff on one big pile and leaving Mother Nature to take a course, is very much like addressing the darkness within and finding out what does hold us back and what triggers us emotionally, and kind of bringing it out into the light, pouring some water on it, adding some heat by way of moving in its direction, facing it and feeling it and freeing it. And then we produce within ourselves this beautiful balance of energy, which is open and accessible to new information and new directions of journeying. So composting is just amazing, hey? What else can I tell you? So like by way of brown compost, cardboard can go on to compost piles. Newspaper, paper, take time to shred it up and put it on so it's more easily broken down. But really, for both permaculture and a plant-based diet, composting is where it all begins. And it's such a beautiful thing to do. It keeps it all local. And really, yeah, to produce a good soil is to produce a healthy body. And a healthy body is capable of just all sorts of magic. So, there you go. I've been T-Rad, and this has been T-Trail, Nature's TV. Looking at the best of the old and the best of the new, and bridging worlds into a place of peace and prosperity and perfect health for all. So if you've got any questions, composting related, or I'll do another video soon on permaculture and the plant-based diet, feel free to get in touch. And other than that, We hope you're all well. You're enjoying this September sunshine. The trees and the leaves are on the change, I noticed today. So yeah, it's an exciting time of year. It's harvest time. Yeah, there you go. Much love, guys, and yeah, enjoy your exercise and nature and eat well. And we look forward to seeing you out on the trail soon. All right, peace.